Good morning, dear students. Welcome to the new session. We are going to begin with the first chapter of Indian economic development. But before learning the chapter, I would like you to see this small movie. Let's watch this small movie together and understand what are we going to learn in this chapter. It's a small movie but interesting. So let's watch together.
The structure of India's present economy has its roots in history. India was under the British rule for almost 2 centuries. The sun of British Empire set on 15th August 1947. India saw a new dawn and became independent to write its own destiny after 200 years of tyranny. An understanding of exploitative nature of the British is essential for an assessment of the level of development that Indian economy has attained over the last 6 decades. 2 centuries of British rule left a great impact on India's economy and economic development. On the eve of independence, we took a small step towards democracy. But on the economic front, we went many steps backward. The British used India and its rich resources like gold, raw silk, and food crops as feeder for Britain's own industrial development. This ruined the flourishing Indian industries like jute, textile, etc. According to a study, India's share in global income slipped from 22.6% in 1700 to 3.8% in 1947. The largest share of workforce belonged to agriculture. About 75% of our total population was dependent on agriculture. About 10% population was engaged in the manufacturing sector and 20% population was engaged in service sector. Agriculture was the main source of livelihood, which was in a pitiable condition. During the colonial period, India's agriculture saw no growth. Productivity was stagnant. In fact, it was deteriorating. Agriculture in India during the colonial rule was facing many problems like outdated agricultural techniques, lack of irrigation facilities, negligible use of fertilizers, inferior quality of seeds, etc. These factors were responsible for lower production and productivity in agriculture. Land tenure system had three forms: Zamindari system, Mahalwari system, Ryotwari system. This gave birth to two classes in rural India: the landlords and the landless cultivators. Under the Zamindari system, the Zamindars used to exploit the cultivators by charging very high rate of land revenue from the poor farmers. Besides that, commercialization of agriculture by British rule forced the Indian farmers to shift from subsistence crops like rice and wheat to commercial or cash crops like indigo. This helped the British industries in getting supply of raw materials from India at cheaper rates. Reduction in the production of food crops led to frequent occurrence of famines during that period. India could not develop a sound industrial base under the colonial rule. Before the advent of British rule, India was a prosperous nation with a booming handicraft and textile industries. India indulged in large-scale production of cotton, silk fabrics, sugar, jute, dyestuffs, and metallic products like arms, metalwares, precious stonework, jewelry, perfumery, etc. The British rule converted India from an exporter of finished goods to an importer of finished goods. India started exporting raw materials like cotton, jute, etc. and importing finished goods like cotton fabric. The Indian handicraft industries experienced rapid decline both in the artistic excellence and economic importance. Decline of handicraft industry created large scale of unemployment in the country. These unemployed craftsmen migrated from cities to villages. This led to an increase in the burden of population on agriculture. But there was a silver lining behind this exploitation. In the second half of the 19th century, modern industries began to take root in India. In the late 19th century, cotton textile mills were set up by Indians in Maharashtra and Gujarat. Jute mills were set up by Britishers in Bengal. The iron and steel industry began to come up at the beginning of the 20th century. The Tata Iron and Steel Company, TISCO, was incorporated in 1907. But these modern industries had several drawbacks like growth rate of new industrial sector and its contribution towards GDP was negligible. Public sector units were mainly confined to railways, power generation, communications, etc. The restrictive policies of commodity production, trade, and tariff pursued by the colonial government adversely affected the structure, composition, and volume of India's foreign trade. Trade policy pursued by the British converted India into an exporter of raw material and importer of finished goods. Export items included raw silk, cotton, jute, indigo, etc. Whereas import items included capital goods, silk, wool, and cotton clothes, etc. During British rule, some basic infrastructure like railways, telecommunication, etc. were developed. The motive behind this was to serve various colonial interests rather than the growth and development of the Indian economy. Railways was one of the major contribution of the colonial regime. On 16th April 1853, India saw first train journey from Bombay to Thane. Development and construction of railways had positive effects on the Indian economy. It provided cheap and rapid transport system, which broke the geographical barrier and created new employment opportunities. Few inland waterways and sea routes were also developed. Electric telegraph system was introduced to maintain law and order. But the postal services were inadequate. On 15th August 1947, we received independent India with a damaged and completely drained out economy. with a backward infrastructure. Even agriculture was not strong enough to feed the citizens of the country. Since independence, we have overcome many social and economic challenges, especially agricultural and industrial growth, to support a large population.
So hopefully you might have enjoyed this small module. Through this video, through this module, a small movie, you might have understood the gist of the chapter. Further, I'll be explaining you the meaning of economy, features of economy and the other topics one by one in the next videos. Thank you all. Have a nice day.